Yesterday, the Nigerian Governors Forum announced that the states can only afford to raise the national minimum wage from 18,000 to 22,500, as against the 30,000 being demanded by organized labor. What's your reaction?
Well, organized labor is not demanding 30,000. Before now, the three unions that have come together at the centers to constitute organized labor made various presentations. NLC 55 with TUC, the United Labour Congress, who happened to be the president, 96,000 justified. And then when negotiations started, the governors were represented at the tripartite committee by 6 governors, reflecting the 6 geopolitical zones. The federal government represented, the private sector represented, and negotiations started. At a stage, there was need for organized labor to have one position, which now made them to go and harmonize the various positions, and they came to the negotiating table with 65,000 naira demand, and negotiation commenced. Now, realizing that the federal government doesn't want to implement the minimum wage, and that must be clear, there's no delay tactics that they have not deployed to this process. The committee was inaugurated by November 27th, 2017. They refused to commence action, deliberation, until March 2018, after much pressure. Between March and end of September, contrary to various promises, no agreement. Now, when they met again, the Minister of Labour, seeing the pace at which Labour was going, adjourned the committee, saying it died. It's like everybody go home. That was why Labour had to embark on the 2 days warning strike for that committee to be reconvened. The committee was reconvened, and they went there. There was almost a stalemate. The subcommittee led by the Minister of Labour, Ngige, was asked to bring about 2, 3, 4, 5 scenarios so that they could adopt it, since they were given 4th and 5th to conclude the assignment. He went, and they brought 38,000 naira, 37 point something, 36 point something, 35 point something naira scenario, 4 scenario, to the committee, and they were to adopt one. It was at that point that the organized private sector said, hey, for peace and for us to make profit, because we spend a lot buying gas, paying for energy, the power sector is not working. Please, can you please take it at 30,000 so that we can remain in business? 30,000 wasn't among the 4 scenarios brought by the Ngige subcommittee. And with that, I beg, after much consultation, they went outside, they discussed. Labour say, okay, if we must take care of the thousands of millions of Nigerians who are working in the organized private sector, 30,000. Some members of the committee endorsed their signature. They say, no, let us bring a clean slate. And the day we have to make this submission to Mr. President, everybody will sign. What is remaining is just the signature page. And a motion came and was seconded. No counter motion adopted, and people left. For the Minister of Labour to come a few days later to say that they will pay 34,000 naira.
24,000?
Yes, 24,000 naira. And now kind of incited the governors who started meeting. Now, for clarity, the Nigerian Governors Forum is an illegal body as far as the issue of discussion of minimum wage is concerned. They are not known in law as a negotiating machinery. So to use them to sabotage the process is, to say the least, trying to put fire into an already heated polity. So whatever they are coming with is part of the distraction, that is being created and generated by the Ministry of Labour. And we are going to disregard it. Because if we release their various presentations at the committee, there's hardly any of them that brought 22,000. So it is the federal government now, through the Minister of Labour, that is calling them for a meeting. And he was saying this morning that they invited him to a meeting. The governors cannot summon the Minister of Labor on issues bordering on minimum wage. So I think they are up to game. Based on that, the various labor unions are retracing their step because 30,000 has been orphaned. Nobody is the father of 30,000. We've gone back to our 65,000 naira, and on 65,000 comes 60. Action will be taken. 30,000 could go to the winds.
How realistic? This is one question that has cut across the minds of a lot of Nigerians. How realistic, affordable, and achievable is this fund in the face of the current economic reality of the country?
Well, how is the economic reality? You have, in the first instance, Nigeria is the least paid, even in Africa or in the world. The Nigerian political office holders are the highest paid in the whole world by any international currency. Now, is it difficult for any leader to know that if there is a gulf, it's not even a gap, it's a gulf. Now, can't you meet it up? If you meet up that gulf, you can pay comfortably 50,000 naira minimum wage. If you drop all the wastages that are involved in the personnel costs in running of states, you can pay over 60,000 naira minimum wage.
But some states are already finding it difficult to pay. For
because
example,
they can't close the wastages. Why will you appoint a special assistant, a special advisor, and the commissioners appoint all these scrutiny in offices? Why will, if you see where they're printing all this Nigerian coat of arms, a lot of wastages. How much is their security vote? We want this issue of security vote to be disclosed so that we know what is happening. Why must you award contract for road construction when you have a lot of engineers in the Ministry of Works? Now, if you take the work of the public service and you contract it out, now you are duplicating functions. And some of the contractors you gave this work will still come to the ministry to take the engineers to do the work. So who is fooling who? I think there is need for proper auditing of the expenditure in public offices. The national minimum wage expired in 2016, 2 years after. You decide not to review it. Labor has been putting pressure, daily basis. Review it, review it, review it. You refuse to review it. Now, I want to know the time that is the time we are supposed to ask for this, if not at the expiration. Besides, the value of the naira, by the time we are collecting 18,000, the dollar was exchanging for 150. Today, the dollar exchanges for 360 something, 350 something, 100% more. And be frank with you. Now, fuel, pump price of petroleum products were at 97 naira. It has jumped up to 145. And that means more money to the federal government. Now, from whatever they were collecting as revenue from tax offices, even in 2015, has doubled from the report we are getting every day. What the custom is raking has quadrupled the report we are getting every day. The money they are recovering from looted funds have doubled. Now, where are all this money? Where money coming from petroleum has doubled. Then you want to pay less. Now, what starts as you are paying a senator maybe 30-something million. Why don't you subject them to minimum wage, even if you agree conventionally?
But from that perspective, which is where my next question, why has Labour not called for a national protest on the wages and allowances of the...
No, there have been wages, there have been demonstration, but somebody is paying them. The executive are paying them. So long as they continue to pay them, they believe that what they're doing is right. I don't pay them. If Mr. President approves money from the Federation account that takes care of what the legislators get, it then means he assumes that there's money. And if there's money, the Nigerian workers should be well paid. The 22,000 naira they are mentioning now is barely $60 a month. And Mr. President can go to the international community to announce that in his country, workers earn minimum wage of $60. That is what people make in a day in some economies. Now, if you go to the poverty index, with what they have announced now, with that 22,000 naira, Nigeria will be the last. the poverty index, and you tell me that the economy of Nigeria is, or the political system is working. Now, when they do certain things, they debase the very essence of their existence as governors. Why will you pay somebody, 22,000 naira? And why will you pay somebody even 30,000, less than 1,000 naira a day? A family of 6, what that translates to is about 40 something naira a day per meal. Can you imagine this? And with that meal alone, no house rent, no school fees, no transportation, no Medicare, you dare not be sick. The last minimum wage was 2010, 2011. From 2011 to now, 7 years is not enough time. At the expiration, at the signing of one, every party is looking at the next 4 years. Which other time do we need? Okay, we should all keep our mouth closed and give them time when all workers might have died. The number of people dying as a result of poverty and the inability to seek for Medicare, is unimaginable in this country. Any administration that cannot pay living wage is discredited. You don't need to say it. Any administration that is paying the lowest in Africa or in the world, is it not discredited? Any administration that the people are dying of hunger, is it me that will discredit it? I don't understand what you mean by discredited. If you can't improve my well-being, will I recognize you? I'm telling you that the issue of politics or who contests is out of our focus. What is in our focus is to make sure that Nigerians survive.
So in other words, Labour, national body of Labour, is standing its ground. Come November 6th, they're embarking on this strike action.
There's nothing on the way now that shows that the government is addressing the issue. Nothing. After 1 year of negotiation can't be till infinity. In the first instance, apart from adjoining Senegal, the government did not include provision for payment of minimum wage in the 2018 budget. It's deliberate. So whatever they are doing now is deliberate. Just engage them, keep them busy while we move on. So they have not shown any commitment. Although, as we talk today, most state governors, Jigawa is saying they are ready to pay 30,000. Bayelsa said they are ready to pay 30,000. Edo yesterday after the protest said, already we are paying 25, we can pay 30. Some states, and it's not good for us to generalize them. Some states that get their priority right, states like Enugu at the committee say whatever is agreed, we are going to pay. The one of Benue say whatever is agreed, no, we are going to pay. So that's the situation you have today. But there are some governors, especially those whose tenures have expired and who may not be going to the Senate, that to them it doesn't really matter. But any governor, the governors who refuse to pay, who are going to set committees to make sure they're equally retrenched come 2019.
So Nigerians should be preparing for a showdown come November 6th. How will Labour sustain the strike action?
Well, the issue of strike action in Labour, I don't know how people look at it. The last 2 days' action had a target: reconvene the tripartite committee. And when it was reconvened, Labour called off action. Now, the action is not meant to kill all Nigerians. It's not. Now, if Labour goes for a 1-week action now, if they are suffering from strike lethargy, we can call it off and come back the next month or the next week. Now, the strategy we are going to take may be best known to us. So it's not a question of how can Labour sustain action. As far as there is Labour, they can continue to take action for any amount of days. If they want to make it frequent, if they want to make it indefinite, if they want to space it, those ones are the details that will emerge in the next 2 days. If you take the cost of living index or the inflationary rate, any of these indexes in negotiating salary, you discover that 65,000 is nothing as of today. Now, because if you take a bag of rice, which a family of 6 could manage, and you take house rent, because you may not be able to live in Ikeja and Ikoyi, you will live in the fridges, then definitely if you have your own private car, you will fuel it with a minimum of about 10,000 in a week. If then check all the wears and tears assuming your car has a problem. For 1 month, you will be spending not less than 30,000 on a car, fueling it. Now, there is no power. Even if it's 1,000 fuel you are putting in your generator, I pass my neighbor for a night, it's 30,000, another 30,000. If your children are entering bus to school and back, if you have 4 kids, you spend close to that. There is hardly any private school today that is charging 30,000 for school fees. If you have 4, which is the limit they propose, then there's a problem. I'm not sure there's any house rent now, any house that will accommodate 6 people, even if it's 2-bedroom flat, you can't get less than 10,000 in a month. We have not put other facilities, and we pray that you will not be sick for that period. Now, if you look at that, and what I'm not talking of having any saving. I'm not talking of paying your offering or tithe in church. If you look at this, you discover that 65,000 naira will go there and you still borrow. So that is why we must go to the realistic. If the governors are saying they are realistic, is 22,500. They are entitled to their opinion. But the realistic, which if you like, invite the whole world, invite world economists, we look at what is the realistic that will keep somebody alive without savings. So that's why we are going back to 65,000, so that because 30,000 has been orphaned. Even the people that say they beg, and the governors, and we thought that we are being patriotic. Now, if 30,000 has been orphaned, then everybody is taking to their position. They have wasted our time for 1 year. And if what they achieved is to pull us down from 96 to 30, and they say, no, that 30 we didn't agree with. And we believe that people should be men of honor in such a meeting. It then means everybody to your house. It then means nobody. Maybe we were in the dream when 30,000 was mentioned. It then means nobody has agreed on 30,000. So that's the point I'm making clearly. If you say they didn't agree on 30, we couldn't have agreed on ourselves. In a negotiation, you can't agree on yourself, just as they are saying 22. You can't do it on yourself. If there's a negotiation avoiding bodies, it must be what everybody agrees to. It's not what the governors said they would do. It's not what Labour said they would do initially. And we thought that was the spirit at which we came to the tripartite committee. But at the end of tripartite committee, the federal government said this is their position. The governors are saying this is their position. And then our position will remain our position.
But talking about being realistic, part of the arguments that some of the governors have put forward is that they were not elected to pay salaries alone. There are infrastructural developments that has to take place, and other things have to be done in the state.
Any governor that said he was not elected to pay salaries should be impeached. First priority, human development index capital, is salary. When you pay salary in a system, you ignite the economic development. The person selling Gary will sell Gary. The people producing Bonvita and Indomie, they will sell. If you pay a governor and he puts it in a Swiss account, the economy does not benefit from it. It is the salary you pay to workers that keep the economy moving. It is from that salary he engages an artisan, a bricklayer, a carpenter, please help me do this. So if he's saying that he's doing infrastructure, I don't know how many of them that have built schools. Are they building schools? Check all the roads. Which roads are functioning? So the key point they have is to pay salaries. And I don't know how many of them have built companies for their states to benefit from, unlike those in the First Republic and even the Second Republic. Some of those infrastructure, they have even sold them. So the governors, I don't know, their critical assignment is to pay salaries, and that is what touches the people. Salaries and pension. They are not dashing money to the private sector people. They are not dashing money to these people selling oranges. It's the salary they pay that people equally patronize those informal sector workers and traders and artisans. So if a governor opens his mouth to say this, it then means he doesn't know the very essence of his being there. It's for public good. And how do you get the public? Is he sharing 1,000 to every citizen every month? So I think some governors equally were elected there without knowing the cardinal principle of their job.
Away from the strike action, part of the agitations in your statement yesterday included the fact that there's been increase in the high there's been hike in how much is paid per kilowatt, especially electricity tariff. What is what is Labour doing about this?
Well, I have discovered that every problem now is what is Labour doing. If somebody has problem with the wife, the response in Nigeria is what is Labour doing. Every assignment is now given to you. You can't get up to 4 million Nigerians, maybe who are on formal employment or who constitute this labor. But majority, you can have up to 50 million Nigerians who are paying this exorbitant tariff,
Okay.
and they are keeping quiet. Now, when they were privatizing electricity, some of us said, hey, people will suffer. In a pre-industrialized setup, you privatize electricity and you subject it to the market, then Nigerians will suffer. We argued, the federal government, all of them, there's no place, nothing they didn't use to fight us. At the end of the day, they sold. They gave them the first 5 years. Within these 5 years, the federal government of Nigeria gave the discos and gencos about 1 trillion for a facility they bought for about 400 billion. Somebody bought your house for 400 billion. You gave him 1 trillion to paint it. What that shows is that the buyer is the seller. And I'm challenging them to mention the owner of these discos. As of today, who are the Nigerians that bought these discos? It's a mirage. And we are made to understand that they sold 60% to them, and federal government returns 40%. Have they declared dividend of 1 naira that covers the 40%? And now Nigerians are watching, asking what is Labour doing? Now the same Labour that said Nigerians should speak last when this thing started are still doing their own in their own small measure. We were in Ikeja, we were in Enugu, we were in almost all, we were in Port Harcourt to challenge these people how they are charging exorbitant bills without services, and also the anti-Labour stance of as of today. Mind you, we have shut down Benin. Benin Delta side, all their offices shut over these same issues. Nigerians still want us to come and say don't charge them money. Now the issue of the assignment given to Labour is becoming too much. At the end of the month, they charge you 5,000, you pay it. You say, what is Labour doing? We have equally moved in all those areas in our own small way, but the federal government is not helping matters. Their 5 years have expired, and then the contract says we'll come back and evaluate them. Federal government asks them to stay for another 1 year without reviewing the contract. So you can now see that it seems that the seller is the buyer. Ekiti or Osun can be worse than Ebonyi. And I know that they are not owing salary there. And some of us, they can be worse than some of these states I'm mentioning, Jigawa, Gombe, and what have you. And I know that some of them are paying salary, paying 18,000. So I think we should come back to governance. In the First and Second Republic I mentioned to you, in the East, they were doing a lot of palm produce, granite in the North, cocoa was so much in the Southwest, and development was going. If there are states that are not viable, they could match with other states. If you create states that are not viable and you believe that there's nothing you can do. But even in the Second Republic, some of these governors entered into some other processes of generating revenue. Now, if you measure it based on what comes from federal allocation, then you are getting it wrong. States must devise means and ways of generating resources internally. Let me say this, Anambra State is not an oil producing state. As of today, I don't know what happened. Anambra is exporting even vegetable. There is Anambra rice. If you go there, there's even irrigation, trying to develop their own power. You check the road network. Anambra people are producing vehicles. Even if you think of Tokumbo materials, where they are fabricating it is in Nnewi and all those places. Now you have to think inwards and see, your comparative advantage. in the Committee of Nations and the Economic, and you mentioned maybe Abia. Anything you see now, you see Abamed. You see those shoes, bags, and all those ones. Now, even if you are collecting toll of 50 naira from all those ones, or tax from all those ones that are producing, you see that they will be somewhere. Now, in the Second Republic in Imo, where I happen to be from, I will tell you that there were a lot. I had the palm, poultry, tanning and leather industry, international glass industry by Sam Mbakwe. As of today, the governor there have sold them. Now, what is the basis for their revenue now? If there are no cash points, if there are no revenue being generated by these states, then you depend on what the federal government sends to the state. And then when they send it, you share it, and you still maintain, high lifestyle. I'm not aware that governors are owed salaries, even when they are not, or their commissioners are owed salaries. So anytime you talk of increasing the poor workers' salary and they bring all these arguments, I think we should look at it very well. If you can't run a state, or if a state is not viable, we can still merge it with some other states that are close to it, or we consider the regional arrangement. There's no law that says, we must have 36 states in Nigeria. The states that could be viable, that could pay salary, that could address the needs of the people, I think we can move ahead.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.